Hello, I'm Tamara Augustin, and I'm going to present a presentation about the factors affecting physiologic function. Physiologic functions play a major role at rest and while exercising, but let's see how. The factors that affect physiologic function during exercise is oxygen consumption, adequate fuel provision, hydration, and genetics. The oxygen consumption holds three main physiological parameters, which include maximal oxygen uptake, exercise economy, and lactate threshold. The cardiorespiratory system and peripheral physiological functions can limit the VO2 max. Adequate fuel. The body relies on fuel from what we eat, including carbohydrates and fats, to produce ATP. Fuel can affect endurance, exercise capacity. Hydration. Sweating is a normal response to exercise, but can result in fluid loss and impaired endurance performance. And genetics. Regardless of training volume or intensity, 10 to 30% of VO2 max is determined by genetics. Which factors affect physiologic function at rest? Physical activity, dietary-induced thermogenesis, climate, pregnancy, age, gender, and hormones. So physical activity can allow people to have 10 times more of a metabolic rate when resting if they engage in physical activity. So if you've ever heard of an athlete or a bodybuilder, when people say they're just burning calories just by sitting there, it's because their endurance and their physical fitness is up to par. So it's like their body is a fat burning, calorie burning machine just sitting because they've involved themselves in physical activity. So dietary induced thermogenesis. Depending on which food you ingest, thermic effects of food typically achieve maximum of 1 hour following feeding, which ranges between 10 to 35% of ingested food energy. Climate. People who live in tropical areas average 5 to 20% higher metabolism than people in temperate regions. 3 factors include core body temperature, additional energy for sweat gland activity, and altered circulatory dynamics. Cold environments increase energy metabolism. Pregnancy can reduce movement due to added weight during the time. The last trimester of pregnancy increases pulmonary ventilation. As far as gender, men normally have a higher metabolism than women, primarily because of body mass and body composition. Hormones. Certain hormones can increase or decrease metabolism. For example, if your thyroid is at a lower level, it can definitely decrease your metabolism. Since working in a clinic for about 12 years, that's one of the first things people come in about when they're gaining weight and they're dieting, or they're saying, I'm exercising, but I'm just not losing any weight. So that's an example. If your thyroid hormones are off, that definitely can affect your physiologic function. Factors that enhance physiologic function: specific training, motivation, buffering of acid metabolites. So specific training for all brief or all-out exercise can positively enhance the glyptic system's capacity to generate energy, also producing high blood and muscle lactate levels and greater muscle glycogen compared to others who are not trained. People with greater pain tolerance, this is for the motivation part, they just have the ability to keep pushing beyond discomfort and fatigue. They accomplish the most anaerobic work. So just pushing yourself can definitely enhance that. And last, increasing the body's buffering capacity or alkaline reserve can enhance short-term energy transfer and enhance greater lactate production. Which factors limit physiologic functions? Pulmonary diffusion, cardiac output, blood volume, and flow. So pulmonary diffusion is where your lungs exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide between the lungs and the blood. It limits function because if the cardiac output is higher, it shortens the time period for blood to receive oxygen from the lungs. Researchers have concluded that 70 to 85% of the limitation in VO2 max can be attributed to maximal cardiac output. Maximal output is dependent upon a person's age because the older we get, our maximal heart rate decreases. Working muscles need more oxygen in blood, and oxygen is carried by a molecule called hemoglobin located in the red blood cells. The body redistributes blood flow to the active skeletal muscles while being ready for the extraction of needed oxygen. Similarities between the factors affecting physiologic function during exercise versus rest. Physical activity, the adequate fuel, climate, and genetics. Those I found were similar. Either whether you're exercising or if you're at rest, these factors definitely affect. So these 4 factors are the ones that I found that relate to both. How does heat production affect physiologic function during exercise? So we have some processes: the radiation, conduction, convection, and evaporation. The body absorbs heat energy when an object's temperature is in the environment exceeds skin temperature, making evaporative cooling the only avenue for heat loss. Conduction transfers heat from one molecule to another through liquid, solid, and gas circulatory system, transports most of the body heat to the outer shell. Convection acts as an insulation zone to minimize further conductive heat loss. Heat loss increases because convective currents carry the heat away. And last but not least, evaporation, evaporative cooling, provides the major physiologic defense against overheating, transferring heat to the environment. So that concludes my presentation. My references are here: Nutrihand Health First, our wonderful textbook, 5th edition, and an article from Kravitz and Dallek on the physiological factors limiting endurance, exercise, and capacity. So I found most of my information from these resources, or references, as you would say. Thank you for watching, and have a great night.